Hi everyone, welcome to Cloud Ranger's Microsoft Azure training. I'm Sean Ismail. I'm a cloud architect with Two to Lead, and that's my contact information there, my Twitter, email, as well as LinkedIn if you wish to connect. Today is part three of Azure Cloud Services, and what we are going to discuss about is cloud services configuration. So in the last couple of sessions, we went over what cloud services was and how you can create them, what are the different role services you have, and today we are going to get into some details of how to configure some of these role services. Okay, so let's get started. So before we do anything today regarding the configuration, I want to do this a little differently. So we will be going to my client server machine as well as the slides off and on. So the first thing I want to do is actually get a cloud service created in the back end before we come to the slides. So let's go ahead and first create a cloud service. So I am at my client computer here connected to my subscription. By now, you should be quite comfortable with creating a cloud service. So what we are going to do is rather than coming to the portal here, I'm going to use Visual Studio and create the cloud services from here. So you can pause or you can follow along at this point. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a project. Azure Cloud Service 1, I'm going to keep it the same name. Choose the Azure Cloud Service here. Click OK. And I'm going to have a web role as well as a worker role. And I'm going to name them Ranger Web Role 1 and Ranger Worker Role 1. You can name whatever you want to identify your ones. Click on OK. And it's asking us for the new ASP.NET project. We'll have this as empty. And the project has been created. Okay, so we are going to leave this at this point over here, go back to slides and carry on with our conversation there. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about in configuring cloud services is the roles instances, right? So what we know is that there are two roles in a cloud service, obviously the web role and the worker role. And the web role and the worker role can have multiple instances, as we know. So the thing that I want to emphasize on for both exams as well as production is that these roles can be scaled independently. So you could have a cloud service with just one web role, for example, and have maybe two worker roles or three. And you can do this independently of each other. So you don't have to have like one web role, one work role. It's not a one-to-one. It could be any ratios. And the reason for doing that and these roles to be scaled independently, one good reason is that it's very well suited to multi-tier web applications. So you might have a website where the people come to the website and the web application goes connects at the back end, does some sort of processing, connects to databases. So the web role might not be as busy as the worker roles, and to serve all the users you could have one web role which displays the web application or brings the front end of the web application, and have like about five worker roles working in the back end in tandem to make sure that everything happens properly. So you can independently scale them and utilize them based on obviously your environment, your needs, your audience, and everything like that. So that's one thing. The other thing that's very, very important to remember is the capacity of subscriptions. So each instance of this web role utilizes like at the back end, basically these web roles and these worker roles are virtual machines. These virtual machines have their cores, they have their CPU cores, they have their memory, they have disks. So you have to remember that the subscription that you have from Microsoft Azure actually has limitations. As much as we say that your cloud is elastic, which is true, you can add and remove resources as you want, which is true as well, but there are limitations per subscription basis. I have to be very careful when I do that, when I say that. So you have to remember what is the capacity of your subscription because you might want five web roles and five worker roles, and each of them will have two cores each. So all of a sudden you need 20 cores total, right, for your project. what will happen is maybe your subscription is not going to allow you more than 20 cores per subscription. Microsoft actually has limitations that are put in place. So you have to be very aware of that when you are creating these worker role, web role instances, that your subscription can hold that. And before we actually go anywhere, let me actually demonstrate what I mean by, that you have to understand it. You have to be aware of what your subscription is allowed and how much it's allowed to do. So let's go ahead and view how you can check that. I do have the PowerShell scripts here, but the commandlets here, but we'll go and talk about a little bit in a demonstration on how to find this information for your subscription, okay? So let's go to our client system here, and we'll come over here. Let me first see what subscription I'm connected to. So that will be Get Azure Subscription tab. Okay, looks like Ranger Pay As You Go subscription. Looks like I'm connected to the right one. So the commandlet is quite simple. It's the same commandlet here, and the only thing you have to do is current, which will, if you have multiple subscriptions, it will take the current subscription. So if you look at this, it will be same because I'm just connected to one subscription here. And I want the extended details. Okay, so let's get the extended details of my subscription. Here you will find at least some of the most important things you have to remember, or the capacities you have to be aware of. Okay, so the first thing we are going to look over here is the current core count. So my current core count is 0, and my maximum core count is 20. So I created, I did not publish this web service here. So currently, that's why it's showing that I do not have any core count. Means I'm not utilizing anything. But I can go up to 20. Okay, so let's go ahead and publish this this web service, and we'll see what happens to those changes and how it utilizes that. Okay, so the first thing first, I need to put in some resource here. So let's go to my Ranger Web Role 1. I'm going to add a new item. I'm going to add an HTML page, and I'm going to call this one default.html. Okay, so basically the first page. I'm going to do an add on this. And from here, I already know I have one role each, right? So let's come over here, go to properties, and see the instance count is one core. So one core is going to be used for the Ranger web role. Ranger work role, let's do the properties of this one, and it will see, we can see it's one role over here as well. As you can see, you can change this over here, right? This is a sizing. We'll come to this later, but that's what it is for now. So let's go ahead and publish this one. So the way we do that is come over here, go to publish. This is going to be, okay, the subscription that I'm connected to. You'll obviously see your one here. So it's asking for a cloud service. I'll just call it Ranger Store, Ranger Website 1. And this is going to be East US 2, and I'm going to make the storage. So this is doing the cloud service and storage account. So the cloud service is going to be Ranger Website 1, and it's going to be locally redundant store over here. So we already know that. So let's create this. And you can see this is the cloud service that's going to create for us, because I do not have anything over here so far, right? There's nothing in my subscription, so it's doing everything for us. You can do it the other way around too. I'm not going to enable the remote desktop. Let's leave it the way it is, and it's going to be in release. The environment or the slot is production. So you know all of this stuff already. So nothing new here. Let's go ahead and publish this. So I'm going to pause and come back when this is done. All right, so looks like the cloud service is up and running over here. It says it's complete. So let's go ahead and look at what's our core count right now. So current core count is 0, and the max is 20. Actually, you know what? Let me do a little bit of this. Select current core count, and I need max core count. Okay, So as expected, you can see the current core count became 2 from 0, and the max is 20. Now, I want you to understand that why this is important. So you might have multiple instances of a web application, web service, or even multiple web services. And this core count will keep increasing. And at one point, we'll notice that it has reached 20 and you won't be able to create any more role services because you are out of your core counts. At that point, you will either call up Microsoft support and have them lift or increase the core count, or you use a different subscription. As you know from my sessions on the subscriptions, is that you could have one account, Microsoft account, with multiple subscriptions. So you could have multiple subscriptions to do that. So this is something that's very important for you to remember, that this core count does not go high. And it's important both for exams as well as um, production work. Okay, so if you cross that at that point, it will start throwing errors. Okay, so let's go back to our slide. We have talked about the capacity of subscription being important. The other thing I want to talk about is actually the requirement of having multiple instances. So when we build cloud services and when we publish that, we have seen before where we had to put that checkbox to say that I am okay for this to be published even if there's one instance of a role in the cloud service. So currently the cloud role that we had created was only with one web role and with one worker role. However, that is not sufficient for it to have the proper SLA or the service level agreement from Microsoft. So Microsoft provides a financially backed service level agreement saying that your service is always going to be up for at least 99.95% of the times. And if it isn't for whatever reason, they will actually compensate you financially. And that's quite important for Microsoft because a lot of people are gaining faith that Microsoft is confident that they're going to have this service up and running at least for 99.95% of the time. But at the same time, Microsoft wants you to remember is that your architecture, as much as flexibility it may have, should also support high availability. And this is where multiple role instances are responsible for two important things. One important thing, and we have talked about this when we were doing virtualization and high availability virtual machines and high availability sets, is that upgrade and fault domain. So if you have multiple instances in a cloud service, Microsoft guarantees you that when it is upgrading the host where this virtual machine is located, it will make sure that it is going to do one host at a time. So if you have two instances of a web role, it will make sure at least one web role is up and running when Microsoft is doing one thing, that is upgrade, and the other thing is if there is any hardware failure. So having multiple role instances will ensure that the upgrade Microsoft does, and if there's any hardware failure, you are not going to be affected. Okay. Architecturally, obviously, you can have one and one, just like we just did right now. But Microsoft actually makes sure it reminds you that if you don't do more than one, it might not be able to back you up for that SLA. So that's another thing that's very important to know. So let's go ahead and try to look at a couple of things. One, we are going to use PowerShell right now, and the commandlets you can see is right down here. We're going to use this to increase the count of our web role to 2 and our worker role to 2 as well. And by doing this, we'll ensure that we actually have the upgrade and the fault domains taken care of. So Microsoft SLA is supported. Obviously, this is something that's important for production, right? I mean, you want to make sure that you are within the SLA and you are not going to have any downtime. So let's go ahead to our client computer and get that done. All right, I'm at my client computer here. So the first thing we want to do is go and browse our role instances. And we know that it's going to be one and one. So Ranger Website 1 is our cloud service. Let's go in there. Once this loads up, if you scroll down over here, you can see roles and instances. We can see that there is one web role, one worker role, and these are the names and these are the sizes. So click on the whole thing, not on this guy separately, but click on this instances over here. Once you click on that, this is what I want to show you. So Ranger Web Role 1 and Ranger Worker Role 1, these are the two roles, sizes, status. You can see update and fault are at 0, 0. So that means that if right now there is a failure on the host that Microsoft is running this virtual machine on, uh, it will fail because there's no redundancy for this virtual machine. Update and fault, they're all at 0, 0. There's no redundancy there at all. So it goes for the worker role as well. So let's do something. We're going to use PowerShell to increase the role count, the instance counts for the web role here, and we'll use the management portal or the preview portal to actually increase the one over here. Okay, so let's increase one of the instance counts directly. One way to do that, of course, is that when you are deploying it, you can say directly that, hey, I need more than 2 instances, or I need more than 3 instances, or whatever. We can do this from the cloud configuration directly. So let's actually, before we get started here, show that. So you can see the instance count for the Ranger web role here is 1. We could have set this to 2. And over here, it's 1 as well. We could have set this to 2 as well. So when we are publishing this, it would have gone and published this with 2 instances rather than 1. That was one way to do it. And the information is actually located here. So let's go to the configuration file here. You can see the instance count is 1 and 1. So these properties that you see over here, by right-clicking over here and going properties, it basically reads from the service configuration file here. Okay, so it picks this 1 and 1 from here, and this is where it is. If it changes to 2, this will change over here as well. So for your exam and production both, it is important for you to remember that this information is located at the configuration file where the instance count is. Okay, so one way we took out of the way is that you could have done this while publishing. Let's assume it's already published. So one way to do this is from the PowerShell. So let's go over here. Let's first get our Azure role. So this is one commandlet that's pretty neat. And I'm going to say the service name is going to be, I think it was Ranger Website 1. That's what we called it. Ranger Website 1. Yep, Ranger Website 1. That's what the service name is. Okay, let's hit enter. Okay, it's showing us that the role name Ranger Web Role 1 has 1 instance and Ranger Worker Role 1 has 1 instance as well. It's another neat way to view whatever it is. So let's set one of these roles. So set as your role. And what we are going to do is we're going to set a service name. And the service name we know is Ranger Website 1. And what we are going to say over here is let's go to the role name. So the role name is going to be, let's do the worker role, okay? So our role for the worker role is Ranger Worker Role 1. Worker Role 1. Just want to make sure we're not making any typos here. Okay. And we have to say which slot it is in. We know that the slot when we are deploying was production, so let's go ahead and put the slot is production. Okay, that's important for you to put. And the count is going to be, I don't know, let's put it as 2. Hit enter on that. This actually takes time. And the reason this actually takes time, if you think about it, is because it has to now go back and totally reconfigure and create a new virtual machine for our worker roles, right? So it creates a second instance, means it's spinning up a virtual machine at this time. In fact, if we come over here at one point, we will see that it is spinning over here and trying to create one. Obviously, it's working and doing its stuff at the back end, but I'm going to pause and come back when this shows up over here that it's working on it. All right, it took about like 4 or 5 minutes, and I can see that over here it started creating a virtual machine. So let's expand this a little bit. We can see the worker role 1 instance 0. Well, it's in unknown state because it's all in a flux because it's doing a lot of things in the background to ensure that this instance 1 is actually starting up right now. It was creating, and look, it changed right now. The web role started running and this started just running that. So let's click on the instances here. Show you something here. Look at this. It already went and changed the update and the fault domain to 1 for the new instance. So technically for the Ranger worker role or the worker role itself, we are now quite under, I mean, we are at par. at par with Microsoft's 99.95 SLA requirement, because now that we have more than one, Microsoft will ensure when they update one of these hosts, underlying hosts of these virtual machines, or if there is a failure for hardware or whatever, we are actually protected. So that's what basically what I meant by having multiple instances to make sure the update and the fault was taken care of. So we will let this settle down, and once this settles down, we are going to use the portal to go and increase the count over here, okay? All right, looks like it's all up and running right now. So the new instance is there. It's all built. So let's go up over here and click on instances, okay? Two worker instances and one ranger. So I just demonstrated how to do this using PowerShell. You see that this commandlet actually succeeded as well. So if we run the command over here, get Azure role and the service name, obviously we are going to see that the worker role for the ranger worker role actually has two instances. So let's go ahead and change this one now. And we are not going to do this with PowerShell. We're going to do this from the preview portal. The way you do this is actually not click here, but click on the Ranger web role here directly. And you can see over here that there's a pane here for scale. So let's go ahead and click this one. So auto scale is off and instance is one. Don't worry about the auto scaling. We'll talk about it at some point in the future session, but we are now concentrating on instance one. We can see that right now, the instance is only at one. And this is something we want to change. So not go to 44. Let's come over here. Let's not get carried away. Let's go to, for example, 3. Okay, so we're going to have 3. So it's going to create 2 more. So let's go ahead and click on save. And of course, this is going to take some time for this thing to happen once again. So I'll be back when things are up and running. Okay. Just unpausing here to actually show you that it's actually creating those 2 extra virtual machines, because we said that there are going to be 3 instances, right? So already one was there. Actually, this is a good one for exam point of view. When we mentioned over here, let's go up over here, count equals to 2. So it went and created one more. So this 2 over here does not mean it's going to create 2 extra. It's just saying that there are going to be 2 total. So one was already there. It just went and created one more extra. Here, when we pulled the slider and we said 3, already one was there. So it's just creating 2 more. When we said 3, it did not mean go add 3 more. It just said it's total. So if one was created, 2 more. Just want to put it out there so you understand what it actually means. Alrighty, looks like all of them are done. Okay, so let's come over here, click on instances. I want to see what's happening here. As you can see over here, the update domain and the fault domain, they all have updated with information here. So, you know, if one of them goes down, you still have the other 2 running in this one, and here you have one. Um, while this is done, we have used up quite a bit of the number of cores we are allowed to do that. So let's go and explore that commandlet once again. So it was, what was the commandlet? It was get Azure subscription. Okay, so the current subscription, and I need the extended details. Okay, let's try this. Okay, look at this. The current core count has gone to 5. And the total that we are allowed is 20. So we can have 5 more, we can have 15 more cores in our subscription before it starts screaming. So this is important to remember, okay? And this is the total number of core count that's then in your subscription. So if you have other virtual machines which are using core for something else, it will be counted over here as well. Not all the time. So over here, we have 5 virtual machines now, right? Because there are 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instances. Not all the virtual machines will have the total size of core as 1, right? I mean, each virtual machine has 1 core, but we might have virtual machines where the core might be more than 1. So that's something I want to get to right now. So let's go to our slides and let's move on. The configuring the cloud service role size. So we are we talked about the number of instances. Now we're talking about the size of the instances. When we created our cloud service, and we'll go back in there momentarily, we created our roles as one instance with one core, and the size of the virtual machine was small. Because the size was small, it was actually giving us one core. That size can obviously change. The thing to remember here is that this size of the web service role VM is not the same as the IaaS or IaaS virtual machine size. These sizes are actually different. So if you go today and create a regular virtual machine on your subscription or in Azure, that size may not be the same as the size of a web service roles virtual machine. Okay? As much as you think that these virtual machines might be of the same size, they're actually not. And I'll show you how to find out what the sizes are and how they're different. It's not a whole lot different, but there is some difference that you have to be aware of at certain levels. The history behind Azure, if you remember, is that first they actually started with cloud services. There's nothing called as infrastructure as a service virtual machine. Azure used to not even provide that service. Okay, it was only PaaS, platform as a service. So whatever we are doing right now is PaaS stuff. So it was giving you access to that. And there was the requirement for virtual machines were different. Then when they started providing the service for IaaS and they said that, we are going to allow you to make your own virtual machines for other workloads, what happened is they changed the virtual machines slightly to do that. So let's go ahead and discover that and find out where we can find all this information. So going back to our subscription here, let's close all of this. Uh, close the server. Okay, let's leave that on. If we come to one of the worker roles, so let's come to the Ranger worker role here. You can see that we had one instance count and a small virtual machine. By small, we meant one core with, 1700 megabytes of RAM. This can be obviously changed. So if we come over here, we can see that you could have put other virtual machine sizes over here as well. You could go as far as like 16 cores for your virtual machine. Uh, you know, that's a standard D14, one of the D series virtual machines. But what I'm trying to get at is that these sizes are not the same as the infrastructure as a services size. And the one way to find out that what this actually constitutes of or what this means is actually over here. So if we come over here, let's clean this up and we go to get Azure role size, hit enter. You can see it's throwing us a lot of stuff. The stuff that we want from here really are select instance size, and we need the course. Okay, let's do the course and we'll do the memory as well. Let's hit enter on that. So when we say it's going to be something small, as you can see, it's one and it is this. Okay, if we went and said that we need something large, it would be like 4 cores and it will be about 7 gigs and a little bit more in memory. Okay, so this is something you have to remember that not only the instance sizes can be changed, the instance countings can be changed, the instance sizes can be changed as well. And if you come to the service configuration file over here, you will see that we say the instance count, the name and everything, the size is not here. The size is actually defined in the service definition file. Okay, so if you click the service definition file, you can see this is the worker role and this is the size. And when we say small, it means something like this. So get as your role size is a very important command that you have to remember for this. And these sizes or this specification that you are seeing over here is not exactly same as the IaaS virtual machine. And you know what? Let me actually show that to you. Just give me one sec here. Okay, so I'm at this URL, azure.microsoft.com. It's in documentation articles, virtual machine size specs. So these are the virtual machine sizes for infrastructure as a service or IaaS. And what happens is if you look over here, I could not find much difference. Like the small size still has one CPU core and it has about 1.7 gigs of memory. That's fine. But you can see that there's a lot of more option over here. A9, it has 70 cores. Look at the options that we have for our virtual machines here. If you look over here, I don't even see a size. Uh, well, A9 is here. It's 16 cores. There's a standard, there's basic size. So this is the same one for the standard. I wonder what basic sizes are there. 1 to A4. Basic size is 1234, so it has most of it. Standard here. Let's see if the D sizes are here. DS 1, 2, 3, 4, 14. We have up to DS 14. Well, they're almost the same, but as you can see, the listing is quite different. So this was listed under the virtual machine sizes specs, and here the commandlet, it's quite obvious that you are looking at the role sizes. And Microsoft makes this distinction to make sure to just give you an understanding that, hey, these virtual machines can be of different sizes and they have different, they have different resources at the back end. The cores and memory might match, the disks might not match, the IOPS might not match, or something. So far, I've seen that it does match in most realms. Like the cores and memory, I found out that they caught up quite a bit since they started. All the D sizes are now available here, which they weren't before. So I'm seeing that most of them have matched up, but Microsoft actually, in all its purposes, it's want to make sure that it creates a separate distinction between the role sizes and the virtual machine sizes. Okay, so this is something that we have to remember is different. And this information is located in the definition file here, the VM size. Okay, so that's something we have to remember. And this is the screenshot I had put over there where I was showing that it is the small size that was picked up for our one. Okay. All right, so much for that. Let's actually move on to the next slide. And what we are going to talk about is the cloud service role operating system. So all these virtual machines, just like infrastructure as a service, you can choose the operating system that goes on this virtual machine. The thing to remember here, well, a couple of things to remember here is that the operating system setting configuration, it applies for all the roles. So just to keep it consistent, you cannot have one role in your web, one role in your worker, and different operating systems. No, it has to be the same setting for all the roles across the cloud service. So once you say that, hey, I want Windows 2012 R2 and the latest release, you have to make sure that it is for all of them. There are two settings that are applicable for choosing the operating system of the virtual machines. That will be the role virtual machine in your cloud service. One is the operating system family, which is identified numerically, and I'll show you what I mean by that, and the operating system version. So you can choose the family of the operating system as well as the version. And we'll go to the client machine real quick, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So when we come to the service configuration, so the cloud service configuration over here, under the element service configuration here, if you scroll all the way to the right, you can see two things. There's the OS family, which is 4, and OS version, which is pretty much just star. And asterisk over here basically means that the latest version. That's what it actually means. But OS family 4. I want to run a couple of command lists to actually show what that actually means and how the changes over here can reflect what the version and the operating system family for your role service is going to be. So let's clear this screen. The commandlet that I want to run over here and want you to remember, it's called get Azure OS version. It's pretty simple to remember actually. If you click OK with that, it throws a lot of information. The information that we are interested in is, you know, something like Windows Server 2012 R2, right? So we need something like Windows Server 2012 R2. Let's assume that that's the latest one. And let's go up over here. So looks like the number 3 means Windows Server 2012. Number 4, the family 4, means Windows Server 2012 R2. So by that, we know that the virtual machine we have for our cloud services all are Windows Server 2012 R2. And then you have the version. So you can see the version over here is actually named a little differently, but these versions actually show that when they were released, right? And the release version, there are multiple release versions that are there for you to ensure that you get different updates. So some organizations, they're like, hey, I don't want to go at a cutting edge and have the latest updates yet because I know my web application runs on this platform with these updates well. So Microsoft always makes available few versions with the latest updates to ensure that you have that option to change. The other important thing to remember is this key over here is active. So you might have a lot of listing in here when you run that get Azure OS version. There might be a family of operating system which has the right version you need, but it might not be active. And the reason it's not active is Azure says that it's too old. Even if it's 2012 R2, there might have been some critical security patches that came after that. I do not want you to go back and choose one of that with some sort of a you know there is a security flaw or whatever. So not all these versions or family of operating systems over here are actually active. So let's actually filter this a little bit and bring it to a point where it's more visible for us on what we want. So let's get Azure OS versions. I'm going to get the version 4 because I know that I want 2012 R2. Obviously, depending on your project, it might be 2012, it might be 2008 R2. So you can go up and you can see that it actually has family for a lot of other things too. Like family 1 is 2012 R2. So depending on a project and your requirements, obviously you can do that. But for our purposes, we want the family 4. So let me go and select all the versions where I need the family of the operating system. Oops. I need the family of these operating systems to be, well, I'll just put like, probably could put equal, but I'll just put like over here. And let's see what I get. Okay, so I should get all the operating systems with 2012 R2. So let's go ahead and select some information from there, okay? Let me select the family, obviously. I want to also select the family label because it will give me which server it is. Good. I want to check the version, obviously. And let me also find out if it is active. Okay, let's hit enter on that. Okay, so all the family 4 came over here. These all are Windows Server 2012 R2. And you can see these are all the versions. And obviously, only like, I don't know, 4 of them are active. The other are not active. Okay, so you can only choose one of these 4. So let's clean up the filter a little bit. Not only it's going to be is active, actually, let's do this. Should have pressed CLS. So not only I need this to be active, let's sort it. Okay, let's sort it and find out sort by is active. Okay, let's hit enter. Okay, so looks like these are the only 4 versions that you can actually use, because everything else over here for 2012 R2 have already, it's no longer active, so it's sort of expired. They don't do that. And you can see that the reason behind that is they have got over here. Okay, let's do one more thing. I know I'm going a little bit more than required, but let's do this. Let's do this in descending order. Okay, I'm going to sort this by is active and go descending. So this would be the latest one. And I know this is the latest one because this was released sometime in May 2015. Okay, May 2015, this came out, and then there was one on the 20th, and then there was actually there's one in July over here as well. What is this sorting by? Oh, it's going descending over here, so I can see what happened. Okay, so the latest one then came over here. Right, this would be our latest one. Okay, so this is the version. Let's see what version we had over here. This over here actually means do not do any guesswork. Go pick up the latest one. So we did pretty well over here. Put the asterisk here, so it went and picked up the latest one. So the wizard here knew that, hey, go get the latest operating system you can find. So it's 2012 R2, and it's going to be the latest version that it can find over here. So it went and picked that one. Okay, let's clear the screen. And you can see there were others from 2014 and all that. And this is the reason they're inactive. Heck, I can even see one that's from 2014 here. There's one from 2013. Wow. So, these are the ones that were expired. Okay, no worries. Let's go ahead, clear the screen. So the thing that I want to do over here is do this once again. What if my developer came and told me that, hey, the latest update is not working because we needed an update, or we needed a version from a different, with different updates, right? So rather than the latest one over here, let's go pick up one that was from April or something like that. So the thing that we would do over here is take this version, okay? So take this version, and what we would do is, rather than the OS version being automatic, or pretty much the asterisk here means pick the latest, we could have done something like this, okay? This will work as well. So when this operating system is going to be deployed for this virtual machine or this role, it will pick this version specific for the deployment. Okay, so this is important to remember, that we have the control over the operating system here, and we also have to remember that this operating system is across all the roles, right? So all the roles you can see over here, that when you are doing the service configuration, you cannot do this on a role basis or instance basis. It's for the total service configuration. Okay, so that's something we have to remember. All right, so we came over here. These are the two things. I mentioned how to identify this numerically and the OS version. And I do have in the slide the command lit here to ensure that you have access to this as well, and you can practice along. Okay. So I do think I covered everything for cloud services configuration for now. Um, these are the ones like instances, playing with the operating systems, playing with the role, the instance count, instance sizes, as well as making sure that you are not crossing the subscription boundaries. Those are the important ones. The things to remember here is also to ensure that you have at least more than one instance count. So the SLA is, it is going to be honored because you have more than one count of instances for both the roles. So this is something important to remember as well. Okay, so I think that pretty much concludes our session for today. In the next one, we are going to get into more deeper configurations of the cloud services with the other aspects. But these are the core configurations for cloud services that you need to work on, okay? So as usual, our training site is at cloudranger.net and /Azure training. You are viewing this most likely on YouTube channel, Cloud Ranger Network. Feel free to follow me at Twitter at Sean Ismail, and email sean@cloudranger.net. And you can obviously connect with me on LinkedIn and be part of my network. Okay. Well, thank you for viewing, and I will be seeing you in the next session.